Hi, I'm Stewie 3D, and I've got a tale of how I was a monumental Muppet on two occasions and ended up with an iPhone 10. So, for those of you who know me, I always said, oh, the iPhone 10 is a joke phone. It looks like a prototype, should never have left the factory. It's got a hideous notch. The gesture-based user system, I didn't like it when I played with it in the store. The 8 Plus is cheaper and does pretty much all of what the 10 does, apart from the fancy Face ID stuff. And that's the one I'll go for. So, how did I end up with a 10, you might ask then, if I was so against it? This is the second part of my Muppetry. It's a two-part story. So, there we go. We'll start with part one. So, on Saturday, I was out at work, as normal, and I was speaking to Skazius on the phone because we were talking about burner laptops. I wanted just a cheap wreck of a laptop off eBay, an ex-business thing, because my MacBook is playing up. Basically, I've replaced the charging wire on it 3 times, and it's gone again. And it's gone so quickly, it's just like, oh, great. I don't want to be spending 80 quid on a whole new charger when I can buy a ex-business laptop for only about 100 on eBay, which will be the same spec and come with a 12-month warranty. So discussing that with Skazius, and I had him on the Bluetooth, so I weren't driving on the phone. I had him on the Bluetooth, but I was using a sat-nav on it at the same time. And I was stopping at various properties because I was doing start-stop work. So I'm going to one property doing work, moving to the next, doing it a bit more. And I noticed when I was task switching on the iPhone 6S Plus, it ground to a halt. It was like, whoa, what's going on here? This has never been this bad before. Literally, you double tap and it would take a minute. Oh, wait a minute, there you go, multitasking window. And you'd scroll the little cards. And it was like, it felt like a video game on a really underpowered system. It was so bad. I was like, crap. What's going on here? I know Apple were throttling older phones, but not to this extent. No way. And I knew the battery was knackered on my old one, but it'd always been quite snappy. I said the 6S Plus still works really well, to be honest with you. I've always said, but it's still a fairly decent phone. So I rebooted and thought nothing of it. So carried on with my work. I finished work a little bit earlier that day, intending to make the time up this week, which I can do. And got home and then realised, oh crap, I had to go to the bloody shop. At this point, I was pissed off because I was knackered. It was cold, wet, windy. I'd been outside and I was knackered. And then I got to go out to the bloody shop. And then all I wanted to do was get in, have some dinner, have a shower, and just sit around in pants and t-shirt for the rest of the afternoon. So, yeah, then went back to the shop. Remembered that Ali had the debit card, but I thought, oh, well, I'm not going to go home because I've got Apple Pay. Apple Pay will work. Now, I had a problem with Apple Pay a couple of times before, but I always got it working. It took a bit of jiggling around with a phone on the reader, but it always worked. So I thought nothing of it. I thought, well, it might. I warned the cashier at the shop. I said it might take a couple of attempts, but it generally works. She went, yeah, no problems. So I went to pay for me groceries with Apple Pay, and the phone was just not detecting the reader. It was saying, hold phone near reader. I was like, I am, it's right on top of the flipping reader. And the reader kept timing out. There was a massive queue building up behind me. She was like, we could try other tools. I was like, it's not the till, it's the phone. I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm getting really angry. She goes, don't get angry. I was like, I'm sorry, and I feel, I wasn't rude or anything. She wouldn't, but I kind of feel for her because I weren't rude, but I was like, I'm getting angry. You could see it building up in me, how angry I was getting. And for the love of me, I could not get the bloody phone to work on the card reader. Just was not having it. It was not detecting the card reader at all. So I think the NFC antenna might have been broken. I may have dropped it once or whatever, and the NFC antenna's worked loose or something. So I left the shop fuming. I was proper. So I called the wife and went, look, you're going to have to go around with a debit card. I'm tired. I want to go home. I want to eat my dinner. And she went, I'm not speaking to you like this. Well within her rights, to be honest with you. I was an absolute arsehole. She was like, I'm not speaking to you when you're like this. And it was that little trigger, that last little trigger. It was one of those perfect storm of cock-ups through the day. And it was that last little trigger. I'm not speaking to you when you're like this. And I went, fine. Bang! Lobbed me iPhone 6S Plus across the co-op car park. boom, screen just shattered into millions of pieces. It was a forceful throw, and got home. I was still boiling, and I went, I ain't got a phone anymore. To my wife, she was like, "Oh God," she went, "You've ruined it," and had a right go at me. And I was like, again, she was well within her rights. So, she gave me this silent treatment in the afternoon, not happy, and I was like, I understand, I deserved it. The iPhone was still working amazingly. It didn't have any screen, but it was still working because it was sending notifications to me watch. So it was working absolutely perfect. You could say "Hey Siri" and everything to it. So, it was it was still working, but I'd completely wrecked it at that point. So I went on to O2's website, who's my provider, intending on maybe getting myself an iPhone SE for 20 quid a month just to tie me over till upgrade. And the wife was like, "Well, why should you get a new phone? Why should you get a new phone? Blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Okay, fair point. I'll figure something out." But when I logged into the My O2, we still had a few months to pay on our contract because they separate the phone part and they separate the phone part and they separate the airtime part. So we still had 170 quid left to pay on our old phones. I had a few months of contract left. But O2 had an offer saying, upgrade now. Basically, we'll pay the last bit of your contract off, upgrade now. So I was like, sweet, we can do that. And Ali was like, well, if you're having a new phone, I'm having a new phone. I was like, yeah, you're well within your right. We've always upgraded at the same time. So yeah, no problems. I went, so do you just want an iPhone 8? I'll have an 8 Plus, because that's what I was always intending to get. And she went, no, I want to look. I don't want you choosing your phone for me. Again, well within her rights. Half expecting her to go for the 8 Plus. She looked at the iPhone 10 and went, I want that one. She went, I know it's more expensive, but I want the iPhone 10. I want to feel like I've had an upgrade. I don't want a phone what looks the same as all my other phones, because she's had the 6 and the 6S, which obviously both look identical, and then the 8 pretty much looks identical to them. And she was like, yeah, I want a new phone. I want to feel like I've had a new phone. So I was like, oh, crying out loud, really? And then I thought to myself, the first thought was like, oh, great. Well, the iPhone 10 works completely different to the 8, the 8 Plus, So it's very rare, to be honest with you, if she ever needs my help. But if anything goes wrong, but if anything went wrong on her phone, she'd come to me. So I thought, oh, well, I'm going to have to get an iPhone 10 so I can bloody learn how to use the damn thing. And that was the first thought, but deep down, I know it was a jealousy. It was pride and jealousy. It's like, no, my wife's not having the most expensive phone. It's always me. I'm the tech geek here. I can't have her having the bloody techie phone and me having the mere mortal phone. I'm having the bloody 10. As a matter of pride, and it was foolish pride, so that's my second act of muppetry. A phone that I said I didn't want because I thought it was a compromised experience with the gestures and everything else. We'll get onto that a bit more when I get to my sort of first thoughts of the iPhone 10, because it has changed my mind a little bit, to be honest with you. So O2 paid our contracts off. We went to the O2 store that afternoon, ended up with 2 iPhone 10s on a ridiculously expensive contract, but a fool and his money are soon parted. Thankfully, Ali's 6S, we should be able to get back another 150 quid if we sell it to CEX. So, we've made about 500 quid with O2 paying the 2 contracts off and selling the phone. We've actually made 500 quid, but then obviously we're spending it again on these new iPhone 10s. So yeah, I ended up with an iPhone 10 as a matter of foolish pride. So, how do I like the iPhone 10? It's not a bad phone, actually. I criticised it. I thought, because I played with it in the store, and I was like, oh, these gestures don't feel right. But after a day or so of using them, it's not bad, actually. The screen's nice. Gestures work-ish. There's a couple of things where the older phones did it better. Like multitasking, I still say that it was better on the older phones, because on the older ones, it was just double tap and slide the app up. On this one, you have to slide it up halfway, hold it, and then the multitasking window comes up, and then you have to hold the app again, and then a little red stop sign comes up. You can either slide it up or tap the stop sign. I think Apple could have streamlined that by slide up, hold halfway, multitasking window, and then let go, slide up again. Would have been a better way of doing it. That was one of my biggest criticisms, and the power button being the Siri button. But to be honest with you, I've kind of got used to that now. Face ID tends to work very well. Screen is nice. I very rarely have to have the brightness up any higher, so that's always good. Battery life seems decent. But then again, that's a brand new phone. My iPhone 6s Plus's battery life was amazing when I first got it. But the thing is, the kicker here, it's not £1,000 phone. No way in hell is it £1,000 phone. When you've got the OnePlus 5T sitting at £500 with 128 gig of storage and 8 gigs of RAM, and a flagship processor, AMOLED screen, same as the iPhone, you can see the difference. It's not £1,000 phone. Apple's pricing is all wrong, but the problem is Muppets like me who can get them on contract will do it. And so Apple know they can charge a flipping arm and a leg. Ideally, when you think about it, if you look at the pricing, I think the iPhone 8 should start at 550, 500, 550 maybe. Maybe 550 to keep Apple's premium on it, I guess. The iPhone 8 Plus should maybe start at 600, 650, and the iPhone 10 should maybe be 700, 750. That way you still got your premium Apple feel, but it's a more realistic price, to be honest with you, because at the end of the day, it is a premium phone, and it has got, as I said, the screen's nice, the speakers are really nice and clear, but it's not £1,000 worth of phone, and to be honest with you, I feel like a muppet for spending that much on the phone, and it's a nice phone, don't get me wrong, but I well deserve all the piss taking Skaz has done so far and will do for the next 2 years of me owning the thing, because Skaz took the piss out of me. I'm not speaking to you anymore. He says, you spent ages saying you're not going to get one, you're not going to get one, you're not going to be that person, you're not going to be the Apple fanboy to buy it. Because I used to be a massive Apple fanboy. Apple could polish a turd, call it the iTurd, and sell it to me for 200 quid, and I'd buy it. But I said with the iPhone 10, I said it's not worth it. I'm not going to spend that money on it, and I've ended up with one. So I deserve all the ridicule I get from Skaz. I fully deserve it. Don't get me wrong, it's a nice phone, but I fully deserve all the ridicule. Because I switched to Windows last year when I got the gaming laptop, when I got the Omen, because the MacBooks were far too expensive. And, and I was slowly moving away from Apple. And I said to the guy in the O2 store, I said, to be honest with you, I'll just get a OnePlus 5T. If it weren't for the fact that my family uses FaceTime and iMessage, it's all baked into their stuff. Holly's iPad is locked down, completely locked down. But she can still make FaceTime calls. So when she stayed at Grandma's a couple of times, she's been able to, make FaceTime calls on her iPad back to me and my wife. And things like that are good because I don't have to install a third-party app, which, FaceTime on her iPad is locked down. She can only call me or my wife, and there's no dialer, or the numbers are pre-programmed in, that's it. So, it's better than having a whole third-party Skype app and stuff. And that's why I've ended up staying in the Apple ecosystem. But, yeah, compared to, say, the OnePlus 5T, it's a nice phone, and the cameras are probably better. It's in the iOS versus Android. We're not going to get into that today, but, it's not worth that much more over something like the OnePlus 5T. And the thing is, I feel like such a hypocrite because I've gone against my own advice. My mate, Glenn, he was considering getting a Note 8 or Google Pixel. He asked me which one, and I went, get the OnePlus. It'll save you a load of money. But then in the end, his wife went out and bought him a Note 8 anyway, and I was like, oh, bloody hell. And I facepalmed because I was like, you've just bought the most expensive bloody Samsung, and I've just gone and done the same. I have literally gone against my own advice and spent ridiculous amounts of money on a phone. As I said, it is a nice phone. I am not going to lie, it is a nice phone. And to be honest with you, once you get used to the gestures, it's actually pretty decent. As I said, there's a couple of things where the older phones did it better, multitasking window and stuff like that. But then there's a couple of things where this one does it better, like sliding the taskbar to switch quickly between the home bar to switch between the apps. And the other cool thing with Face ID is if you have autofill passwords On your older phone, you'd just go onto the website, the password would auto-fill, no problems at all. Whereas on this phone, there's an extra layer of security because it makes you do your Face ID before it fills it for you. So little things like that are good on the iPhone 10, but it's not worth the money. It is seriously not worth £1,000. So yeah, well, that was a story about Muppetry on an astronomical scale. Um, yeah, don't. Moral of the story is, kids, don't get angry with your iPhones. Don't bounce them across the car park, because that iPhone 6s Plus was still a decent phone. Apart from the Apple Pay, which it looks like there might have been a loose antenna somewhere, because I've noticed comparing it to the iPhone 10, the iPhone 6s I noticed lately. I'd be out at work and I'd pull my phone out of my pocket and it would have dropped down to Edge, even though there was a full 4G signal available. And you pull it out of your pocket and it would quickly jump Edge, 3G, 4G, whereas it used to stay on 4G a lot. So at first I thought, I don't know, maybe the network's just congested. But having got the iPhone 10, which stays on 4G pretty much all the time, makes me think that maybe the iPhone 6s did have a wonky antenna. Maybe it has been dropped one too many times or banged about with work or whatever. So, yeah, it was a decent. Otherwise, it was still working now. I wasn't missing any phone calls. Generally, it felt decent. To be honest with you, iOS 11 on the iPhone 6s works as well as it does on the 7, 8, 10. But as I said, it's just that other day on Saturday when it slowed right down. It's just like, oh, great. And to be honest with you, with Apple's 29 quid battery replacement, okay, the problem is you have to be without your phone for a few days because they send it off to replace it rather than do it in the store. With Apple's 29 quid battery replacement, I could have made that 6S last a lot longer. I mean, it had a little bright spot on the screen where obviously pressure or something had built up on it. It had a little bright spot on the screen. Headphone jack was wonky, but it worked. You just had to be careful. I had a bit of a loose connection on the headphone jack. But it still worked. It was working absolutely fine. And at least it had a headphone jack. This one doesn't. But yeah, so yeah, moral of the story, don't bounce your iPhones across the car parks. And then don't try to one-up your wife and get the bloody iPhone 10. Don't get me wrong, I'm not disappointed in the phone. I'm not going to look at it and go, oh, you know what, I really wish I'd just gone for the 8 Plus. Because to be honest with you, it does everything the 8 Plus does anyway. And actually, it's a nice, comfortable size to hold, to be honest with you. It's a little bit more comfortable than the Plus series phone. But it's not too small like the 4.7-inch phones. So it's a nice compromise in the middle, but it loses all the landscape features on the iPhone, on the Plus series, which is a bit of a guy because I did like the landscape features, but hey ho. But yeah, don't bounce your phone across the car park. Don't one up your wife by buying a stupidly expensive phone to compete with her. So yeah, moral of the story, kids: a fool and his money are soon parted. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.